What is up, guys? Politics Gaming here, and today is the 19th episode of the United Mexican States. Essentially, in the last episode, what we did is that we tried to interfere in El Salvadorian politics, and that failed spectacularly with the election of a communist party. It was immediately couped out by the military in El Salvador, so unfortunately, we do not have a friendly government in El Salvador. So we have a couple of options here. We can use our military forces to restore order in El Salvador, or we can assassinate the leader and organize new elections. I'm going to go ahead and try off for the first one right now. So where we're going to go over to Secret Service, we're going to go to we're first off going to destabilize the region, and we already are doing some political spying here. We are also going to institute our Agent 001 in El Salvador. So let's go ahead and go over to number one, cybersecurity. We're going to go ahead and do our own cybersecurity awareness, and we are going to go to we're going to go to Agent 001. We're going to place him in Mexico, or in El Salvador, and we're also going to review over our secret files on heads of state. We only have some on the President of the United States. We don't really have the political power or anything in that scenario to kind of like pressure the United States into doing what we want. We don't really need to do that right now. We already have everything. We do have a non-aggression pact with the United States. We also do purchase weapons from them, and we have everything we could possibly need from the United States. They are our closest trading partner as well. As you can see, our economic relations are quite good, but the best ones are with our South American or Central American allies, and especially with South America too. So we could actually continue to improve relations with places like Colombia, Ecuador, and Brazil, and we still need to continue to try to improve relations with Argentina as well. So that is something I still want to do, but we are going to try to see what we can do in order to destabilize El Salvador, try to get them to possibly need a reason to be invaded. They only have 3 military bases right here, and they have 13,000 troops. We have 325,000. As we are increasing our military presence, and we are possibly going to be going on a military adventure here, we're going to institute a 200,000 recruitment plan right here. So we're going to go from 325,000 to 525,000. Actually, we're going to go to 625,000 troops here. This is going to double our career soldiers here. We're also going to institute a new plan to buy some more equipment. This will increase our need for general mobilization in case we need it. And I think in order to sufficiently create a stronger military, we will increase this to 650,000 troops right off the bat. This will cost us 57.2 billion pesos right off the bat here. This increases our deficit by 0.15%, and we could also increase our stash of missiles. We need to get at least 1,000 missiles in our stockpile here. We do have 100,000 mortar rounds that are on the way, so we can use maybe Guatemala in order to transport our troops across the country and ensure that we are going to be able to use those artillery units accurately. Maybe Guatemala could join us in this military adventure. We could use a coalition here, but I don't know whether we can do this. If El Salvador is up to no good, then we can use that as a reason to invade. However, we don't want to try to invade without a justification. We will get deposed, and we will be sanctioned by the international community in that scenario. We need to walk this line very carefully, and we need to plan our strategy accordingly. So a military plan here would mainly be to send our military units into El Salvador, and we would launch coordinated airstrikes against Santa Ana, their air base, their naval base, and the southern military base in the southern part of the country near Honduras. So that is going to be a large scale idea of what we would do. We would probably be suppressing and capturing the naval base with our naval units and submarines, and we could try to get Guatemala to allow us to transit their territory, and then we can start to use artillery units in the northern part of El Salvador and start shelling Santa Ana. After disposing and liquidating a large part of the Salvadorian military, then we send in at least maybe I would say 50,000 troops into El Salvador and start the process of capturing the country. So what we can also do is that we can start the process of mobilizing a military. So what we can do is go to anti-aircraft battery, and then we are going to move this into Chiapas. And then we are going to go to a couple of different places. We need to start mobilizing our troops and getting them to the southern part of the country. All right, and so what we have now is we have at San Cristobal de las Casas, we have a contingent of 47,468 troops that are available to us, and we will continue to mobilize our military a little slowly as we start to get a casus belli against El Salvador. However, we have a major shocking news story that just broke in Rome, and we see that the Pope has died. The Catholic community leader has told us and informed us the president of Mexico, a very Catholic country with a Catholic population of over 81.33%, the Pope Francis himself has passed away. Madam President, with profound grief, I must inform you about the death of His Holiness Francisco. After a life devoted to the service of God and His flock, His Holiness was recalled to the kingdom of heaven, from where He will look down at us with His benevolence. His funeral will take place in Rome in 3 days. Needless to say, we expect your attendance, Madam President. I don't even have a choice to attend this funeral. I have to attend this funeral. This is the biggest thing that happens whenever you are a Catholic country. As soon as the Pope dies, that is whenever you are basically called to Rome to attend the funeral of His Holiness. So unfortunately, that is a very shocking thing to see happen, and we will be mourning the death of Pope Francisco, and we will be looking forward to who will be chosen in the future as the next Pope. So that is going to be something we are going to be watching very closely as a Catholic nation. During the selection process of the brand new Pope, we will also be increasing relations to Honduras. We will be increasing our aid allocation to them by about, let's say 2.5 billion pesos here. Actually, we'll go ahead and we'll do 5 billion pesos, 5 billion to 5 billion and a quarter. So we'll go ahead and send that over to Honduras and see what their reaction is. And our relations changed from light green to very dark green. So let's go ahead and go over here and see what the relations between us are. Strategic agreements are 76. Let's go ahead and invite them over for a meeting and try to get a strategic alliance with them to make sure that they are going to be a part of our coalition as well, or at least let us use their territory as a base in order to conduct a military operation against El Salvador. And as well, in the last episode, we talked about how we need to get rid of all of our fossil energy plants. We have 419 that are still operating in Mexico, and we can go ahead and replace them with 2 brand new nuclear fusion reactors. What we can do is that we can go over to budgets, and I believe it'll show us right here. Yep, 2.1 trillion pesos are available to us in order to spend. And what we will do is we'll go to construction, we'll go to nuclear fusion facilities, and we will go and build 2 brand new reactors at a cost of 6,500 per building. That will cost us 989 billion pesos out of a manpower pool of 377,000. Let's go ahead and put these under construction. We'll build these in Sonora. We'll build this right outside of the city of Hermosillo, and we will build this just right on the coast. And then we will go and do the same thing, 6,500. And then we will build this power facility over in, where will we build this? So we have an SMR right next to Monterrey, but what we will do is we have Tampico, we have Victoria. Can we maybe build this in Tijuana? On second thought, what we will do is that we will go ahead and build this in the central area, basically trying to use these power facilities to power all of these major cities in this area. We need more electricity, especially clean nuclear electricity that will be powering these facilities, these cities, right in the center of Mexico, right in the heart of Mexico. And so we will make sure that our nuclear power is strong. We already have one nuclear fusion facility outside, just south of Mexico City, or actually south of the city of Puebla, in the region of Puebla. And we now built one in the great state of Guanajuato. So I'm very glad to see that our nuclear energy is up and running and continuing to improve every year that we have it. It is a nationalized sector, so all of the profits are owned by the state. What we can consider in the future, and I will be doing this, is that we will be privatizing this sector with a state involvement. So we will not be privatizing it fully. That way we have a little bit of involvement in the sector. We also could just leave it nationalized, mainly because of how much money it is bringing in. But leaving it to the private sector is how we do improve the sales of the sector. If it's completely under state control, it's not going to perform that well. And as the sector is improving its sales and profits, we need to make sure that it is sufficiently staffed. So we need to go ahead and call for the recruitment of, let's say 100,000 people in this sector, and that will cost about 28 billion at the end of the recruitment campaign. You know what, actually we'll go ahead and cut that. We'll cut it down to about 85,000 people. And we already have 13,000 staffed here, and we will improve the salary here. We'll go ahead and pay them 20,000 pesos right off the bat, and I will do 20,500 pesos right then and there. Go ahead and confirm that over, and we will also go ahead and confirm that, and we will go and see. So conventional oil is privatized, or actually nationalized. So we do see that we do have a little bit of a control here. Non-conventional oil here, how much are we making? 243 billion in sales and 93 billion in profits. So we are making 93 billion in profits here. And our actual amount of money that we are making off of these nationalized sectors. In 2023, we made 157 billion pesos off of the nationalized sectors, and now we are making nearly 600, just short of 600 billion pesos off of our nationalized sectors. So these do provide a massive amount of income for your state, and the more you nationalize, the more you can make off of it. But it also does risk the productivity of the sector, because the more amount of government interference, the more amount that it loses because of things like corruption, because of things like that. So let's go ahead and continue on, and we will see. The president of Honduras wants to go to our meeting.
I'd be happy to.
Let's go ahead and propose a military alliance to Honduras. We'll go ahead and propose a military alliance with the country, and we will also say we need to use your land, air, and maritime routes. So we need to go ahead and get them to agree to this. And could we just get all of this right off of the bat? It is really hard for me to even try to establish a military base in any of my compatriot countries. So because of this, I'm gonna go ahead and end this meeting. We're gonna let the relations improve, because every time you do sign a military or economic contract, it does actually need a little bit of time, like a day, to update the relations. So now we have 100% relations, military relations with Honduras. So what we can do is that we can go and offer them an alliance. So as we are trying to improve our military situation in Central America, a new pope has been elected in Rome. So this is Pope Calixtus IV. The cardinals appointed the new head of the Catholic Church. Henceforth, His Holiness the Pope Calixtus IV will be, no doubt, an exemplary guide and a peacemaker among people. Let's rejoice, Madam President, and give thanks to God, asking Him to grant Calixtus strength and wisdom. So the new Pope, the Calixtus, I'm probably skewering that name. Is that a Latin name? I've never really heard of that name before. Go to religions. Can we see the Pope? This will be in key figures, actually. So we will see religious, Pope Calixtus IV. And let's go ahead and call for a meeting with His Holiness and call for it on Friday the 6th. So he is Polish, actually. He's the Polish Pope now. So we replaced a Argentinian Pope with a Polish Pope. So that's going to be very interesting. I believe one of the most recent popes, I think it was Benedict, he was Polish as well, and he was very popular. So let's go ahead and go to the next day and go to our meeting with His Holiness. And we do have a meeting with Calixtus IV and tell him, spiritually speaking, religion has always been a great inspiration for me, and say,
it's a feeling that honors you.
Yep. And ask him to pray for you.
Sorry, but there are more important causes.
I like how the Pope just literally told us to F off. So he is 65% popularity, he's 73. All right, so here's some information about him. So loyalty vis-a-vis, popularity, he is center politically, high alcohol tolerance level. He's pretty corrupt for the Pope, so I don't know how accurate that is, but I've always heard that corruption is like pervading in the Catholic Church. And sexual identity. Ain't no way, bro. Ain't no way. We got a gay pope now, man. Oh my god, look at this. He's gay, but he hates gay rights. He hates gay rights. He hates same-sex parent adoption. He hates abortion. He hates gun rights. He loves family, humanitarian he is. He loves the abolition of the death penalty. He likes human rights, and he is not that much of a fan of... Oh man, this is the craziest gay guy I have ever seen in this game. Oh, I love this. I love this game. This is like endless entertainment here. So,
seem to have covered it.
Yep, and that goes through with our meeting. And wow, we got an interesting pope, don't we? We have a very interesting pope. He hates gays, he hates women, and he hates gays adopting children. But he is gay himself, so maybe it's like a hidden thing, and maybe it's going to be like a scandal once everyone finds out that he's actually gay. Also, in the last episode, we had a massive increase, or decrease actually, in our poverty rating. So this is a huge, historic poverty decrease in the amount of not only homeless people, but in just poverty in general. We went from 60% poverty to 6% poverty. We have 96,000 homeless people in the streets of Mexico, down from 722,000. This is again, massive decrease in poverty here. So we need to go ahead and we're going to continue to spend most of our money on housing. I think we're going to hold off on spending on debt for a while, mostly so we can actually spend our money on things that we need. So we're going to do a large-scale housing program over the next 2 months and see how many houses we can get. All right, and so we have a pretty good amount of culture in Mexico, and it is severely underfunded. We are only funding our culture by about 28 billion pesos right now. We are going to fully fund our heritage and monuments. We are going to fully fund our museums. We are going to increase funding to theater, musical comedies, dance, and circuses. we are going to increase our funding for family films, art films, and animation films. And this is mainly because in 2023, we used to produce 54 movies a year. We are now only producing 17 movies a year. And in books, we produced nearly 7,000 books in 2023. In 2027, we are only producing 6,600 books. Culture has been severely lacking in terms of funding, and we need to turn this around right now. So we're going to go ahead and increase funding to classical music, variety music, jazz music, rock music, and world music. I think classical would get the most of it, and as well as variety, mainly because I think these are the types of music that pretty much kind of has Mexico stand out. Literature, we're going to go ahead and try to fully fund these, could we? 41 billion pesos. And miscellaneous, we're going to do more funding to photography, and we're going to increase our funding to the video game sector. We're going to go ahead and do that 50 billion peso increase in funding here, and as well, we're going to go on a couple of construction projects here, and a grand library shall be in order. We're going to do this in Distrito Federal. It's actually called Ciudad de Mexico now, so that is kind of wrong, and I will be sending it out over to Eversim, that way they can fix it. We're going to employ 3,000 people to build this. Well, actually, we're going to do 2,500, get it done in about 7 months at a cost of 72 billion pesos out of our 329 billion peso treasury reserve, and we're about to get more in the next 2 weeks. So 7 months, and this will be in Distrito Federal, and memorial site dedicated to the head of state. Museum with an international reputation. So we're also going to be building this in, can we do it in San Luis Potosi, Zacatecas? Let's do this in Puebla. We'll do this in Puebla. This will be a 100 billion peso construction project, and we'll go ahead and confirm that over there. And events, can we do a national day, an international festival, or a year of culture? We can actually do a year of culture here, and this will be chosen later, but we could do a international festival, and this could be in the city of, where could it be? Well, we could do it in Puebla. This will be held in 2029, and this will be on, can we do, let's do January 10th. We'll do this on January 10th, and this will be a film festival, an independent film festival, or a festival of independent film, a festival of animation film. We could also do a festival of classical music, world music festival, dance festival, musical comedy, international exhibition. Let's do a world music festival. It will have varying degrees of influence in a given region and beyond its borders, depending on the budget set. The Cannes Festival in France is one of the most famous in the world. So I'm stuck between World Music Festival and an international exhibition. We'll go ahead and do it a World Music Festival. That way we can do something with our funding measures. So this is called the Puebla World Music Festival, and we will give it a subsidy of, this is in pesos, so we're gonna do a, let's start off with a 500 million peso subsidy. We're gonna do 800 million pesos here, which equals out to about $46.9 million as of January 3rd, 2024. And so we're gonna go ahead and confirm that, and we'll see an $800 million subsidy has been allocated to the World Music Festival. Can you imagine $800 million being into a festival and it still fails? And you know, the amount of backlash that would get. Confidential information on the United States secretly finances Asian Islamic Fighters Organization, which attacked Thailand. So we're not going to really mess with the United States in terms of that, so don't really want to upset them. They are very vital economic and security allies, so we want to make sure that we are on their good side. We want to join the West. We don't want to alienate the West. And as we move toward the end of this episode, in which we will see the new Caillou Summit, which we are finally starting to get the interest rates to start going up. Inflation has finally peaked at 8.28%, and we have been lowering the inflation rate over the past couple of months and over the past year, about half year. So that is really good to see that inflation is pretty much under control now. 5% is still too high for my comfort, but I want to make sure that it is on its way down, and so long it is as it is on the downward trend, that is all I am going to be very happy about. Couple of things that we want to do before the end of this episode. We're going to dismantle all of our fossil energy plants. This will take about 4 months. 20,950 people will be used to dismantle these plants, and it will cost us about 24.3 billion pesos here, and it will eliminate 83.8 terawatts worth of production capacity. However, we are making all of this up with our fusion nuclear power plants, so we don't really have to worry about the electricity shortage. We will have a decrease in the amount of the surplus that we have, but we will still have over 100 terawatts to fall back on until the completion of these new brand new fusion nuclear power plants. What we also want to do is we want to go to our army. We want to go over here. We want to consider the increase of funding toward our military education and training. This will give us a bonus whenever we go to war, and we want to make sure that our military is sufficiently trained and educated in order to be able to face off against any enemy, whether that be El Salvador, whether that be one of our former allies. Maybe something happens with one of our Caillou allies, and we need to respond quickly, efficiently, and strongly. So we need to consider this. $100 billion peso increase to our military spending could be in order. However, could we do it by 2 stars, and that will reduce it down to 61.7 billion pesos. Let's go ahead and do the 100 billion peso here, and let's see what that does to our deficit. That increases it to 0.76%, and that increases our military budget tab to 1.03 trillion pesos. That is about a $100 billion spending measure. That increases our military spending to 1.03 trillion pesos, which accounts for about $60.4 billion in military spending. This still only accounts for about 2.7% of our GDP, so that is still pretty good that we are able to increase our military spending while not making it one of the biggest factors whenever it comes to our budget. Most of our money will be going to health and social security, homeland security, meaning like immigration, and as well as the education, research, culture, sports tab, everything like that. Our military tab right now is 411,000 troops in our military. We are still aiming for 650,000 overall, and our military spending now is about to outpace Brazil. So we are going to become one of the largest militaries in the Americas behind the United States. We will still be very far behind the United States in terms of technology, in terms of spending, and just in terms of experience, but we will be a very formidable force in Central America as well as the Americas and the entire Western Hemisphere, for the matter. Alright, and we have a couple of Hail Marys that we are going to employ here. So we have the regulation of contraception. So contraception in Mexico is at 99.9%, which means that 99% of women are using contraception. That is pretty bad for our birth rates, and we need to make sure that that is going to start being reduced. We need to see that contraception will be legalized, but we need to discourage it. So we're going to do a vote here, and we're going to do a TV appearance to allow Parliament to kind of come in and say, you know, this is something that we want to pass. We'll go ahead and send that over into Congress, and they will pass it for us. abortion is illegal in Mexico. I think we could soften the law here to allow for the case of rape. I will not go to birth defects because I don't, in the case of the game, I don't know if birth defects kind of like starts to identify things like maybe autism or Down syndrome, something like that, like a defect in the child. So we could possibly allow for the case of rape, which would make sense and does make sense for a woman to say, hey, I was raped by someone and I don't want to have this baby. But whenever it comes to birth defects could mean a couple of things. It could mean, in one way, it could mean that it's aborting a child that might die because they have like 3 arms or something like that. Or it also could be meaning toward things like autism and Down syndrome. Obviously there's something in the mind and just in the mental capacity of the child, but that doesn't mean that they deserve to die for it. So it's kind of like a complicated subject, but I think in the next episode we could consider changing the law. That way it's not outright banned, but we do have a little bit of an exception here. And as well, we do have no national law. We could consider the change of the law and the legal status of transgenders. We could do changing gender identity legal under certain conditions, which is necessary surgical intervention, miscellaneous authorizations, or we could just go flat out for a legalization of changing your gender identity entirely. We also need to go back and try to change the law on surrogacy. This will be for a later episode, but we also need to increase the family allowances to 1,005 pesos. So that should be passed, and that obviously automatically passes. What else do we want to do before the end of this episode? View and launch conspiracy theories. So conspiracy theory characters, let's do invasion of the reptilians and vaccines toxic, and as well as the Chinese creation of COVID and Russian global warming. We'll just do all of them, try to see what happens in El Salvador, try to start destabilizing. We could also consider funding maybe even terrorist groups inside of El Salvador, so that could be an option as well. But lastly, before we go, we're going to go over to justice, and we are going to do a referendum. So we did pass the authorization for referendums being a thing in Mexico, and we're going to do a referendum on the legalization of the death penalty. The death penalty is a punishment that is applied by judicial authority. It consists of legally depriving a person found guilty of a crime punishable by the death penalty of the right to life. So what this means is that in cases that we deem necessary, such as murder or homicide or however you want to call it, there will be the punishment of death, that you take a life and we will take a life. So we are going to hold this to a referendum because Parliament is not keen on passing such a law. So we're going to confirm this over and we're going to see what people think. My popularity does carry this a lot, so the vote will take place on the 11th, on the 2nd of November, so we will not see the results of this referendum until the next episode. So that is pretty unfortunate, but we do see that it is a 64.1% chance of passing. When my popularity does rebound, we will see that this will change, and we could see a maybe even just short of 70% being passed. So we're going to go ahead and increase our interest rates with the Caillou, and we're going to change the interest rate to 0.16%. And protests against the death penalty and protests against the contraception change are underway. Hermione Wilson condemns Claudia Sheinbaum. I came to see you personally, face to face, to tell you how much women despise you, what kind of conservatism and chauvinism. You are a disgrace to the planet. Goodbye. So unfortunately, Hermione does not like that I am trying to restrict contraception, not because I hate women, but mainly because I want to promote birth rates in Mexico. It's going to be very important over the next couple of decades to make sure that our birth rates are healthy and making sure that people are having babies and not resorting to things like contraception in order to avoid them.
Here is our growth forecast.
So we're going to go ahead and go forward, and the interest rate right now 0.14%, so kind of better than the 0.12, but still kind of upsets me that we're not able to change this. 350,000 people are out and about protesting. United demonstration against capital punishment. 321,000 people are marching right now in the Capitol in response to the call for the support of human rights made by the Human and Sharing and Solidarity Foundation and National Regeneration Movement. Their slogans denounce the vengeance of the state and the demagoguery that encourages the lowest instincts. You will see, Madam President, that these brave people are trying to depict you as some kind of Bluebeard, and even do not seem aggressive at the moment. I doubt they'll disperse voluntarily. So protests seem to have dispersed, ironically, and seem 0% unemployment, and simple recommendation is telling me to increase the funding to our healthcare system. Let's go over to budget here. Legalization of the death penalty will be in November. And so divided the nation, 89% is my popularity right now. I think we're gonna violate one of the rules of this episode of this series, and we're going to go to the passage of this referendum. And we do see that a natural disaster has struck Mexico. There has been an oil slick right off of the coast, right in between the Yucatan Peninsula and Cuba. And we do see that this happened on the 15th of October 2027. We'll go ahead and do an emergency response package of 5 billion pesos here and see how that responds. So there's no word yet on why this has happened. Maybe it was a ship that sank during the hurricane that is currently hitting Cuba. Discovery of unified theory in physics. Fundamental. We cannot patent it, but our influence of our country. So we just discovered the unified theory in science. So that is really, really good. More protests as of right now. 517,000 people are out protesting against the contraception law that just passed and outdated. So she's very upset at me. So I'm losing a lot of support right now. We need to start rebounding very, very quickly. So El Salvador, he wants to assassinate the chief of staff of the military. So we're going to go ahead and refuse that right now because we're not planning on going to war yet.
The bill has
contraception law, and we need to go to the passage of the death penalty. But beforehand, we need to go over to farming, we need to go over to subsidization, and we're going to increase subsidies to agriculture by a few billion pesos, and we'll increase it to 15 billion pesos. That increases our deficit by a little bit, but that will improve our standing in public relations by the number that we need. So we go to 18.4%, and that is always a really good way to gain more popularity. You just need to make sure you have the room to spend that kind of money. We can go ahead and increase taxes as well, mainly to in terms of like things like I believe it would be the financial transaction tax, or we can increase the company turnover tax, which could net us a little bit of money. Yeah, 43 billion. I think that'll cover it, but we'll go ahead and deal with these financial issues in the next episode. Big deficit of by a couple hundred billion pesos. We could also try to net a little bit more money from the United States for that immigratory contract, but again, the more that I increase that, the more I'm kind of worried about how they're going to respond. Our proof that Salvadorian government secretly finances Bahrain's Shiite resistance forces which attack Bahrain. That is something that we could use against them more so as blackmail, but I don't think that will I don't think that will do much in terms of trying to have a reason to invade them. If they were investing into a nuclear weapons program, that would give us a reason to invade, but I don't think we're able to invade solely off of the idea that El Salvador is financing terrorists in another continent. But I mean, we could try, but I don't know how far we'd be able to get in the UNSC. And we are now on referendum day, so we are on November 2nd, and we are here. So let's go to the next day. More protests just broke out all across Mexico, and this is 283,000 against capital punishment, and we have 43,000 against government policy. So pacifists are always going to be upset about something. Always going to be upset. It's always annoying to them, to me, honestly. But unfavorable regime change in Greece. So I think Greece is going through a bit of a political crisis. I mean, what is new? So we have 8.76 unemployment, 4.4% inflation. They're running a surplus right now, and their debt-to-GDP ratio is 116%. Why are they suffering so much in terms of political crisis? 5 cities are under riots right now, and they've deposed their government literally twice in the last year, literally. Mothers demonstrate against capital punishment. So, several dozen mothers and spouses of death row convicts are demonstrating this moment at Presidential Palace's gates to obtain their forgiveness. They hold pictures of the condemned while marching in silence. Blessed bread for the national and international press that are covering the event. A truly horrible way of advertising. Their moment has also received the support of humanitarian associations and has a growing popularity within the population. We also fear that this support will continue for some time. So as the death penalty starts to come into place, we will have a lot of controversy over it. Maybe it could mean that there is a possibility we could lose an election over the death penalty. So if we absolutely need to change such a policy, then I think we will, mainly to save face in a way. We did do a census poll in August, so we have 47.1% right there. But because we've already gone over a month over the amount of time that you usually allocate for these episodes, well, not even a month, maybe like 2 weeks or something like that, we are going to go ahead and wrap this episode up here. So guys, if you guys like this, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you guys want to see more content like this, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss anything whenever I do make it on the channel. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for watching, and take care.